Okay, so hey, it's us again, Eugene and Andrea.
Hello, asking you to go to webuildlegacy.com to download your free resource, What's Black Love Got to Do with It? And while you're at that, please don't forget to go to our YouTube page and subscribe at We Build Legacy so that you can be a part of our Black Love experience.
Exactly. Now, if you're here, it's because you decided not to skip to page 48. And that means that we're going to start dealing with some of these contradictions. So, it'll help us when we get to the constructs for Black relationships and Black love. But let's just slow walk this thing a little bit. Make sure you have the download because there are some visuals that will help you understand some of these contradictions that I'm bringing up. Okay? All right.
Addressing the contradictions, or some of them. Before we can fully engage Black love with others, we should consider how Black love relates to us loving ourselves first, as people of African descent. In order to do that, we need to examine our beliefs about Africa and the systems that have been put in place to nurture separation of African Americans from their original land and the people that remain there. When one takes a closer look, the contradictions presented to us about who we are and where we come from become clearer, and we can make our own decisions about how we will or will not allow these contradictions to control our lives.
Oh,
Contradictions.
contradictions. Let's just start here.
Yeah. I think I like the part where you talked about loving ourselves.
It's about loving ourselves
And
first.
we did talk about that,
Yeah.
in previous episodes. But I think I'm even in some of the coaching appointments that I'm having, even right now, just backtracking and being mindful over my childhood and coming forward as, a leader. Had to rewind and really go back and really analyze to see if I was really loving myself. It's one thing to, quote unquote, assimilate and get in there and do a great job and looking to appease people. Just because you're appeasing people and people around you are happy doesn't mean that you're happy on the inside.
You're just good at making everybody else happy.
That's right.
But it doesn't always mean that the fulfillment that can come for you in your life is that it just means that you learned how. For some people, they'll say, I learned how to keep the peace. I learned how to do this and that. What we're encouraging you to do is to really start when we're talking about Black love, starting with the love of self.
That's right.
And
I was going to say true peace comes from being true to self.
Yeah.
And if you're not being true to self in your recreational space, if you're being true to yourself in your occupation space, then there's going to come a time when you yourself are not going to feel comfortable about some situations. And those particular times in our lives, we begin to wonder why things are not intersecting correctly. And we talk about, well, why am I not being blessed? Why am I feeling confused? Why is this person coming at me? Why are these people coming at me? And I think a lot of that you brought out in your research with, this whole dysfunction and contradiction and dysfunction is because we are continually running away from the other story, the other side, the contradiction of loving ourselves as Africans. We can't be afraid of hearing that word, that indigenous to my thought process and who I am as a person before my ancestors were brought or were forced or were raped and pillaged and brought here against their will. You know, I, as an African, my ancestry prevailed in such a way that was sustainable. It was great. It was amazing. It was awesome. We ruled in the earth as it related to being harmonious with nature, and while we had our difficulties, we were um, in love with ourselves and our ideology in a way we identify with the earth around us. It didn't come from a European perspective. It came
or anybody else's perspective.
exactly
Because we tend to think everybody else's culture is more beautiful than our own, you know, and all of that is programming. It's all programming, and it's our job to look into that. And exactly, and I liked what you were saying. You were talking about how people felt about themselves. I don't think we often make the connection that if we don't feel good about ourselves, that's not just about the fact that that's not just about the fact that I don't know why people whatever. We have a consciousness in the earth. We have a way of the way we
wow.
see ourselves in
That's
the earth that will affect how we deal with the challenges that we face. How do we deal with the challenges that we face? How are we dealing with this disappointment? It does matter if you think that nobody loves me, everybody hates me,
Wow.
you know,
Wow.
as opposed to, wow, okay, this is a tough one, but this too shall pass. This wasn't the best day. I just need a nap. I'll go to sleep. It matters. The core of who we are, the value we believe we bring to the earth, all of that influences how we feel about ourselves.
You know, we think about, Maslow's hierarchy of needs and how important it is for us as individuals and people as a nation get to a place of self-actualization. See, in that place of self-actualization, you begin to create environments within yourself and around you that appeal to you so that you can prosper, so that you can write that book, so that you can create that business, so that you can prosper in that relationship. You self-actualizing, you see yourself outside of restrictions and boundaries. But we can't do that if we are held captive to a story that does not reflect our original belief systems, and we're held to a lot of systems of laws of what we can and what we cannot do, instead of just being responsible to a right relationship with God, with ourselves and others. We're more or less trying to stay in bound.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not meant to stay in bound. You are creating the image of your Father, which which gives you the ability to color outside of the lines and make mistakes and it be good.
Exactly.
But we can't do that if we don't love ourselves and think that every time we color on the outside of the line that it's a mistake and now we're no good or I made a mistake. My wife, Dr. Andrea, she gets on me a lot, saying things about myself like, oh, that was ignorant or that was stupid or even worse, you're stupid. No, no. Where do those things come from? It comes from years and years
Yeah.
of repeating this stuff from to yourself that was repeated to
Exactly.
your the people who were before you and the people before them, and we have to unwind out of these particular situations so that our relationships with ourselves, our relationships with others, and our relationships with our significant other that we're going into lifelong partnership with are healthy. Doesn't mean that we're not going to have disagreement, but our disagreements won't take us down into a path where we can't come out. We understand that the disagreements are pathways to actually bring us closer of understanding one another. So now I don't have to get offended. She's not coming against me. She's coming against something that she or I myself believes doesn't serve our highest good. So now it's not a thing of being disrespectful. It's a thing of figuring out, okay, where did we get off track and how do we get back on the same page? And I think that even though it's challenging, we don't have to work around a lot of the isms if we love ourselves individually.
I love what you said. I mean, it's so true. And the Most High is so gracious to give us opportunities to readdress these issues that we have,
Yes.
However the source looks for you. And that's really important.
That's good.
I mentioned in the other one, the many-breasted one. I won't get caught up this time, but there are those who refers to our source as spirit. There are those who are like the Most High, the Creator, the Creatrix. Because I'm not even going to get started. I mean, but we're talking about Black love. But even on the continent, I was listening to an elder, and I forget his name right off. He's an ancestor now, but he was talking about how when you look at womanhood, and I'm just going to throw this in as one of the first contradictions, I always think back to the first people. And I do not mean in the context of Adam and Eve, and I know some of us will have that frame of reference, and so that is fine. I think about and put myself in a place where it's like, okay, if I was just a human and I'm living and all these things, we've talked about how the woman has not, in many European contexts, been honored for what she brings. I want you to just imagine forget the first human thing, because some people can't get off that page. Imagine some of those movies where they just throw kids out in the lagoon, wherever, in the woods or whatever. And in that context, they grow up, they have relations, and all of a sudden, the girl's belly starts to grow. I think about stuff in this kind of way. This is how I think about stuff when I don't have boundaries on what I can question. I think about stuff. I said, what would they think God was? I really think they would have thought God was the sun. God is the sun because, whoa, when the sun is here, things grow. When the sun is here, we can see all these things. But then I heard this elder talk about, well, he's an ancestor now. I heard an ancestor talk about how the fact that women have this ability. They didn't know before we know what sperm and stuff is traveling. Before, can we go back to before? Can we think like a child for a minute? Can we think like a child? Because that's where most of my learning came. When I went back to the whys of my childhood, before I was told not to ask any more questions. That belly grows, and wait a minute, you mean to tell me after much pain and travail and everything, there's a little person, a little human that comes out of her?
Wow.
Wait a minute. And then her breasts start dripping with milk that can feed, and this baby, this little person seems attracted to that area. And she can feed,
nourish
this
human.
If you could go back in a child's mind with me, just go to a child's mind of how all of this happened. The first time that these things happened, before they knew what was. There is something about that. The ability to acknowledge the masculine and the feminine energy of God.
Teach.
The Trinity that doesn't include a woman. Since when? How? How does the Holy Trinity not include a woman? How does the family of God not? Hey, I'm just asking a question. Okay, I told y'all to go to page 48. That's what I told you.
Some of the contradictions, we ask you now to go to Rebuild Legacy.
Page 48, and we can just start talking about Black relationships.
We'd like to encourage you at this time to go to rebuildlegacy.com and download your particular book of What's Love, Black Love Got to Do with It, a free resource where you can walk with yours truly, Dr. Andrea Mason.
It's just a question.
And Eugene Mason.
And I had to ask
as we go through this wonderful.
How is there a father and a son and no woman? Hey, don't get me started.
Hey, we are.
How is there no woman when we bring forth life? Hey,
Come on now.
All right, just cut the thing off, babe.
Hey,
just
you
cut
guys
off.
go ahead.
We'll see y'all in a minute.
See you.
Just, it's okay. I'm gonna be better when I get back. I'm gonna be better.
Short.
See y'all. Bye. I'm just saying.